How these teams managed to hijack the planes?
No real details yet, Linda. There's a lot of security measures in place at airports, but clearly the events today have proven that what we have now are breachable. The security measures go from everything to the questions you answer when you check in, to the cockpit door, which is supposed to be locked, to background checks of employees, metal detectors, all that sort of stuff. What's definitely going to happen here is a stepped up look at security measures. Although some people say, look, this isn't as much airport security as national security. Where was the intelligence that this was being planned?
How hard would it be to get, if it was in fact, if knives were used to hijack these planes? How hard would that be to get knives into an airplane?
Well, you do have metal detectors, obviously, that you go through, but there have been situations where those have been tested and breached. There have been officials, other individuals, some cases of reporters, I understand, have tried to take weapons through airport security and have succeeded. So there's obviously problems there. One real issue is the people who stand there, the scanners they're called, have an incredibly high turnover rate. They turn over at a rate of 100% a year nationally. So there's a lot more issues going on than do the X-ray machines work, for example.
These, whoever took these planes controlled them over long distances and flew them into specific targets, appeared to be pilots.
Yeah, it's clear to most security experts I've talked to that the people who did these attacks, planned them, were flying the planes. These planes are commercially available widely. It wouldn't be hard necessarily to get your hands on one and learn how to do it, but you definitely have to do that, because with today's planes, you push the wrong button and you wouldn't actually hit the World Trade Center. You'd do something else.
Thanks very much, Emily. NPR's Emily Harris.
Back in a moment with more coverage of today's attacks on New York and Washington, D.C. on NPR.
This is special coverage from NPR News on today's terrorist attacks. I'm Linda Wertheimer.
And I'm Noah Adams. To bring us up to date on the extent of the victims, we turn now to NPR's Rick Carr, who's in Brooklyn. Rick, can we put numbers here on the number of dead and injured in New York, and also really in Washington, D.C. and in Pennsylvania?
Well, what we know so far, Noah, is that 4 aircraft went down, 2 American Airlines flights and 2 United Airlines flights. They were carrying a total of 266 people. There were 92 people on American Airlines Flight 11, which was the first to hit the World Trade Center. There were 65 on United Airlines Flight 75, which was the second to hit. There were 64 on American Airlines Flight 77, which struck the Pentagon, and there were 45 on United Airlines Flight 93, which crashed in Pennsylvania. At the Pentagon, 50 people went to D.C. area hospitals. 8 of those are in intensive care. 7 are in burn trauma units. In New York City, 1,500 people, the walking wounded, were transported almost immediately across the Hudson River to a New Jersey park. 600 or more are currently in New York City hospitals. Officials at New York hospitals are saying 10 to 20% of those who have come in are in critical condition, and there are more coming in. The New York Police Department told the Associated Press this afternoon that they think that 10,000 or more people may be dead in the wreckage of the World Trade Center, and New Jersey officials are reportedly clearing the same park that was used for the walking wounded earlier today to serve as a temporary morgue.
Just to go back over that, NYPD is saying it could be 10,000 still in the wreckage there.
It could be 10,000. The estimates are that 40 to 50,000 people work in the World Trade Center buildings every day. and it's unclear as to how many had arrived for work and then how many got back out when the building finally collapsed.
Now, in New York City, how are the hospitals coping with this?
Some of the hospitals have already closed in Lower Manhattan. At least one, St. Vincent's Hospital, was already full. That's the trauma center that's nearest the World Trade Center. They had admitted nearly 200 people by the time, or had treated nearly 200 people by the time they closed. They had 2 deaths there. They're sending patients elsewhere now, if they're able to go elsewhere. Bellevue Hospital, a little bit farther away from there, another large trauma center, had more than 120 minor injuries, more than 20 major injuries, and so far 2 people were dead on arrival there. Most of the injuries that are coming in are cuts and scrapes. Some of them are quite severe lacerations, lots of broken bones. The most severe cases are severe burns, crushing, severe bodily trauma. Most of the cases, however, are smoke and dust inhalation. There's been a massive cloud of dust and smoke that's been coming out of the wreckage of the World Trade Centers all day long and affecting all of Lower Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn.
And what is it like? What's it been like today in Brooklyn to be there?
People are absolutely in shock. I mean, I know that sounds like a bit of a cliche, but people are walking around the neighborhood where I live, ashen-faced. They don't really know what to say. They're gathering in shop windows to watch televisions and try to keep up to date and reaching out to one another to sort of try to console one another, but it hasn't all really sunk in yet. I went down to the Brooklyn waterfront earlier today, and there were dozens of people sitting on the rocks near a ruined pier in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and they were, for the most part, silent. They just couldn't think of what to say. They were staring across the East River, which had very light traffic on it today. You know, normally there are lots of boats going up and down the East River, very little traffic, just sort of staring across the water on this